You're tuned into news across the galaxy where they talk all things LA Galaxy with the Nag Boys. Let's start nagging.
And a good evening to you wherever. And welcome to a new season of News Across the Galaxy's The Midweek Show. Tonight, I'm coming at you live from MAG Studios East. We're not in that beat up submarine anymore. Galaxy finally escaped from the trenches of the depths of the MLS table. I'm your host, Edgar Zuniga, with our very own Salvi Demon Slayer on the ones and twos, the Pupisa Hashida Brian Lobos. We are just a few days away from LA Galaxy action at the Coachella Valley Invitational. For me, that's a 230-mile round trip. But if we're talking about long journeys, if we're talking about a long drive to catch a soccer game, this is nothing compared to what tonight's guest has done. They're coming at us live from Wichita, Kansas. Wichita! The host of Between Clean Sheets, Social Media Diary, Cheyenne. What's up, Cheyenne?
Hi, how are you? Man,
Oh my God.
I feel like being from Wichita for this moment. It's my hangout for the off season. Not nearly as exciting as some of these Central American places MLS teams are going, though.
For a moment there, I thought you were inside the van. I was like, wow, it got really spacious.
It got bigger. I'm now on a tour bus. No, this is the guest room in my college BFF's house. She just moved back from Japan, and I felt like it would be great to be centrally located for the start of what is about to be my third year living in 5 feet wide by 10 feet long. So it's 50 square feet of living space that, yeah, you're right. This would have been a surprise. If I were in the van, it'd be a lot darker though. I don't know if my internet connection would be so great, but I would try. I would definitely try.
Yeah, no, it warms my heart that you're in Wichita because I spent like several months living in Wichita when I was an intern at the Wichita Eagle. I traveled up to Lawrence, Kansas. I traveled to the K-State Fair or in near Manhattan. I spent a lot of time with my fraternity brothers at KU. What's that?
I said the little apple, they call it.
Yes, the Little Apple. Um, and I, at first, when I moved there, I had an impression of Kansas. And then when I got there, I was like, this is not what I expected. But within like a few days, I just grew to love it. I just loved Kansas. And people are crazy. They're like they think I'm crazy. They're like, why do you love it? There's nothing to do there. I'm like, you find yourself there. And, there's something about when you travel and you spend time by yourself that it's very spiritual and you find yourself. And for me, that's what that was. And I had a blast hanging out with people, getting to know about a different part of the country.
Mm-hmm.
And you you've traveled so many places. I'm sure you've met tons of people.
Oh, yeah.
Um, but before we get into that, I want to know what kindled your love for soccer and how did you end up involved with DC United? Because that's the first time I ever saw you.
Yeah, this MLS community is something I miss being on the road, by the way. Ahead of this conversation, I was thinking, wow, I hope I don't get asked too much about how the past 2 seasons have gone because I'm not watching a ton of TV in the van. But my love of soccer, it started very early just by playing. And I grew up in Southern California, actually, in Scripps Ranch down in San Diego, and then in Antelope Valley, which just got their USL League One team, AV Alta, which I love. I would consider them my hometown team simply because I moved from Southern California to South Georgia halfway through high school. And I think I would have been like everyone from the AV. Once you leave, you're like, oh God, I'm so glad to get out. But because I was kind of taken from it a little too early, I actually missed the high desert. So, now that I'm thinking about it, playing tournaments in like Bakersfield and Tehachapi and going down into the valley to places that at least had a nice beach breeze as opposed to tumbleweeds. But I, unfortunately, through all of that, grew up played in college at a D3 school in Georgia. I never was really connected to the sport on a larger scale. Like the Women's World Cup happened right in my backyard down in LA, and I just had no idea. I mean, I went down to the Rose Bowl for football games with my family, but it wasn't until I got to college and my older brother had invited me with some of his friends to go to an American Outlaws tailgate ahead of a friendly that they were playing in Jacksonville back when they used to actually like um, try to pick new and interesting or unique places for the men's national team to play. So from there, I moved to DC and became a DC United fan because it was right in my backyard. And I was also being a little bit stubborn and counterculture. And the people I was hanging out with and my coworkers always talked about Premier League. And I thought, why are you caring so much about something that's across the pond? I have no connection to it, and I feel like I love the sport in the sense that I want it to grow to that level. And I just started at DC United tickets. I started inviting a +1 to every home game. I would write them emails on like, this is what you should look out for at the game. This is who you should care about. This is the cutest player, like anything, depending on who I was inviting. And then it kind of turned into just a chronicling of that fandom. And I need to declare it now, and I've declared it so many times. I'm no longer a DC United fan. We have divorced. I can't do it anymore. But that experience has basically been my foundation for my understanding of MLS. And traveling in the van has kind of helped me dive into lower divisions. But yeah, I think it was all playing. It was like team sports. I loved to run. I loved the quick pace of the game. I loved how free it felt, how fluid it is, and yet enough structure for a type A child to still feel like we were being productive. But that is I guess as pure as it gets. I wish it was like I went to a game. All these kids who went to see Inter Miami play for the past 2 years could be like, it's because I went to that one game that Messi was at. And then they find themselves like diehard FC Dallas fans randomly. But yeah, long-winded way of telling you that is what brings me here today. That's how you found me on the internet.
Oh, well, it's so interesting you mentioned American Outlaws because
Oh yes.
me personally, I've been following the U.S. team since I don't know since before World Cup '86. I think I remember like following them and
Mm-hmm.
trying to see if they can get into the World Cup. They didn't, and then they got into World Cup '90, and I was like, to me, I was like, yes. And '94 happened, and I was just like, this is amazing. This is awesome. It's the most
Yeah.
amazing thing
Yeah.
ever. Um, and then years later, right? Because at the time there really wasn't organized groups of people, you know, meeting to go to these games. I finally did meet American Outlaws, and I became a member of
Mm-hmm.
AOLA and met so many amazing people.
Oh yeah.
And it's quite an experience. It's different than the club experience, I would say, but kind of the same. It's funny to be in this huge tailgate with, at the time, right? It was Chivas USA and then San Jose Earthquakes fans, and everybody's just breaking bread and having a good
Mm-hmm.
time, getting drunk together. We're all
Yeah.
singing Wondolowski songs.
Oh my gosh, Chris Wondolowski. Okay, that's what I should have said. What made you fall in love with the game, Chris Wondolowski? I am his hugest fan, his biggest apologist. I literally will block people if they make a joke about a missed kick versus Belgium. I had the chance to interview him a couple years ago, and man, one of these days I'm going to sit down and just be honest with myself and my online community and say it was the most amazing experience. And when I came home, literally flew back from San Jose to DC, I realized that none of the audio captured on the interview. So I am sitting with a muted hour-long conversation, just me and Chris Wondolowski, and my
Oh my
brother, who's an
God.
even bigger Wando fan, who flew in, just like standing there watching. We were in one of those like suites on the ground or like field level, duh. Um, because I've had gone to San Jose a couple times, and then made a video that uh, was basically talking about how much I loved Chris Wondolowski as part of a larger conversation, saying that he could not retire during the COVID season. Essentially, he needed to like extend his league goal record, and he DM'd me to say thank you. He thought it was funny, and I said, "You are not retiring from this league before I get an interview." And I literally flew out to San Jose for it, and I cried to my brother, and he was like, you know what? At the end of the day, you and me got to hang out with Chris Wondolowski by ourselves. Like the press guy walked away. Chris is like, I don't have to pick up my kids from school until 2 hours from now. And we had a fantastic time. He was such a cool guy. So, and that's beyond just how I feel about him as a player. But yeah, American Outlaws, I'll say this, and then we can tuck it away for maybe a later conversation. They were so pivotal in getting a lot of people who are now very active as national team fans, getting them in the door. And I am, since 2022, I am a little bit surprised and disappointed at the lack of a presence they have in the larger political conversation. And I mean like lowercase p political, just tickets and fan accommodations, and then yes, like the broader conversation about what is going on in capital P politics. But there's a void there. I feel that they are not filling to be
Yeah.
a, and we, yes, like I said, we can tuck that away for later. But I have very strong opinions about it, is what I should say.
Well, let's talk about it. Let's talk about it a little bit because
Yeah.
you've been candid about where your life was just a few years ago,
Yes.
and you find yourself in a completely different place now. What led you to resetting your life?
Yes. So I won't get too much into it because it's mostly it's just boring. But I had gone to DC after college in Georgia to work in Republican politics. And my understanding from an ideological perspective, combined with how I was raised and what I had decided to study, and the reality of politics in, I say, this day and age, my entire existence, which has now been 35 years. I turned 35 a couple weeks ago. It took me a couple years to realize, oh, I'm kind of running not even parallel to this. I am veering off a course I thought I would want to be on, both in terms of my like morals and ethics, and then also just my professional career. The two, or the three, I guess, being tied together. But since the administration that we're currently dealing with, since they entered the political sphere, the arena, I feel like I have found myself in the time it took me to get out and to really walk away from all that I had professionally built for myself. I am in constant shock at just how bad things have gotten and how embarrassing it is for the peers and colleagues that I did build these relationships with, for them to still be in DC. And part of me thinks, oh, they're doing what I thought I was doing, is fighting the good fight for what we were raised thinking conservative politics or even moderate politics was. Because I would say even through all of this, I consider myself a moderate. But in walking away from it and in embarking on the journey of an existential crisis that has obviously led me to living in a Japanese van, I have really, like, not only taken a step away, obviously, but turned toward a space in politics that I don't think exists in a formal capacity in a two-party system. But in deciding for myself what I want to actively resist, or how I want to pay back for the time where I felt like I was passively complicit in a lot of things, I have really spent a lot of time on the road, face to face with things that I just really insulated myself from. And that can be anything from how different communities show up in spaces of entertainment, just like I do. Or, I mean, my van is very small, and I picked it up on the West Coast in 2024. Everyone has very like strict guidelines on not parking on the street, and van life is huge, but homelessness, in specifically homelessness where people are living in their cars, is also huge. And I am doing that. I am not living that kind of life. I have the privilege of this being something I'm doing for fun. I wouldn't say it's been always fun, But to be face to face with people who, where the two of us are kind of have the same day to day, but they are going to bed under very different circumstances. Those kind of experiences of either stopping engaging with people on the road, or meeting strangers through soccer and having them tell me their story, or finding myself largely unemployed with an abundance of time, finding opportunities in the moment to human help in places where it's needed. I've jumped like car batteries. I've helped people take groceries into their house. I've like randomly had conversations with people. I mean, in LA, yeah, for a whole summer in 2024, it was meeting people I played pickup with who I now have conversations with politically on just a, hey, you worked in politics. If I wanted to contact my congressman in the most effective way, what would I do? Or, I mean, in my last job as a lobbyist in the energy industry, so much of what I was doing for this international company was being a liaison to navigate some of our employees who worked abroad and were abroad when COVID hit and were trying to get back to do their job. And it was essentially advocating for them to their representative to say, this person's visa is accurate. They're a lawful resident, but not a citizen, but they work for us and they need to come back, et cetera, et cetera. And basically proving their worth, proving what's the word that we all used in COVID? Essential. Proving
Yeah.
that they were an essential worker, which is just all of it's so much, and it's weighed so heavy. But the one thing that I have come out of it with is my distaste for the administration in 2016 that kind of like led me to diverge, grew to a disgust in 2020, and I'm at a place far beyond that right now, if I'm being candid. I truly cannot. It's hard to fathom, and it's something that I've really worked on, like counteracting out. I say out in the wild, but yeah, this country is huge and full
Yes,
of
it
a
is.
lot of different people. I mean, we were talking about Kansas.
Yeah.
I consider myself a coastal elite. There's a beautiful privilege in having a childhood largely in Southern California. Sometimes I forgot these states existed, but now that I'm here, and especially too with the World Cup, like 2026, Kansas City being a host city, and them actually being able to sit at a table with these other like major American cities and have something to offer. Like Wichita's not far away from that. I think the whole city itself is growing as well. So
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
not
When
gonna.
I was out there,
I'm
no,
not
I was
gonna.
saying,
Oh, go ahead.
no, I was saying when I was out there, the population was like 1.5 million. I'm sure it's a lot more than that
Oh
now.
yeah. It's grown in a very exciting way. I like Kansas. I didn't mind being here. It's tough to be here in the winter though.
Oh my God, tell me. I remember the first time there was snow there. I left my car parked under a tree, and it rained and snowed, and then the wheels froze to the ground, and I couldn't get the car going, so I
Yep.
had to walk to the Wichita Eagle from where I was living at the time. That
And
was
I feel
insane.
like that same exact thing happened to somebody over this past weekend with all the snow. There was so much snow.
Yeah. So, um, what encouraged you to head on this amazing journey? You're sitting there and you're like, you know what? I'm gonna go on a journey. And how did you decide on the Toyota Hiace?
Yeah, I think in the content that I was intermittently providing at the time, I really did value the fan POV and was traveling to see DC United a lot on the road. So I figured the problem, okay, and we can talk about this too. The problem with traveling at a time where all of these new MLS teams and stadiums, the kind of thing where like, oh, TQL, brand new, and DC is going to play there. Perfect example, Minnesota United. Actually, this is a real example. Allianz Field, they hosted DC United as their very first host game or home game. Um, And of course I was going to fly to that because I'm like, well, I'd like to see my team and I'd like to see a new stadium. But then you go to these new stadiums and you're like, wow, it is very obvious to me the ownership groups that are allowing their teams to be left behind in this very like transitional, rapidly transitioning phase of the league and of the sport in America. And I really grew to be really apathetic, disappointed, and then apathetic about DC United for the way I felt like they were lacking. And that's including the brand new stadium that they have. It has felt soulless ever since I have gone there. And I've complained about that even when I did have club level tickets that were very expensive. But I just, yeah, I feel like the opportunity to take that idea on the road and let that be a guiding parameter, like for me to have a goal in mind, like I do want to go see a soccer game this week, that kind of helped motivate me to do, of course, like create a plan, but it also helped me justify living in a van and traveling, because beyond that, I didn't have much of an idea. I was really having an existential crisis, and was just so tired of living in DC. And I'm laughing because, well, I laugh and I don't laugh. Someone asked where I was on January 6th. And I got to tell you, to be like, my home was in the security perimeter and I was a neighbor to a senator, to Amy
Oh my
Klobuchar
God.
from Minnesota,
Yeah.
actually. And I was working from home, and really, unless if I was in an office and the TV was on and it was like the news was just on the way it always was at every job I had, I would have realized that they were all like coming down the block, but I didn't. And I was at home and it was insane. And so surreal. It's one of those things, it's happening every single day. You're like, is this real? Is
Yeah.
this actually happening? Like,
Yeah.
the amount of people, TV writers that were like, we have sat in rooms trying to write the most insane Armageddon-esque movie, and none of us would even consider people storming the Capitol like that. Or like, if we couldn't even put that in a script, no one would take it seriously. But yeah, all that to say, I feel like the high ace was the smart decision for me, because as you can tell, the existential crisis was what was motivating the trip. So to dive in with like a Sprinter van, that it would be heavens, like 50 to 100 grand, depending on how big you wanted to do it, seems like a very big commitment I was not ready to make. And a good friend of mine in DC, whose husband imports Japanese vehicles, had brought in a couple high aces. And I was very intrigued and knew full well that Toyotas, and honestly, Japanese cars, any JDM or K car, K truck, are very well taken care of. And Toyota saves some really good cars for themselves in Japan that they don't import to dealers or to Toyota here. So it's a 1994. It has, I'm trying to remember the details here. It had 70,000 miles on it when I got it. It's now at about 105,000. I did blow the head gasket last year in what I am willing to admit was a bit of irresponsibility on my part in monitoring. But I didn't think I was driving much because I was in New York City for most of the summer, and I was like, I'm not driving. The air conditioning's out, but I'm really only going like a couple blocks. But no, it was insane. So yeah, it just 50 square feet. I had no plans for the build out. I had gone to a friend's wedding in Portland after I picked it up in Tacoma the week before. And his uncle at the reception was like, I heard you live in a van. I've got to see it. And I said, yeah, sure. But just tons of stuff like packed in it. And he lives in San Juan Capistrano and said, if you do need help with the build out, let me know. Cut to about 6 weeks later, I ended up staying with him and his wife in San Juan Capistrano, and we built it out over the course of 10 days. And I now have like a bed bench combo and an entire row of shelving. I have a sink, so I do have running water, and a really nice like laminate floor. So I actually miss it, if I'm being honest. I don't like it would not like it during this weather, but
Yeah.
as I have my schedule for the next 6 weeks literally right in front of me, and the more that I've looked at it, the more I'm like, I want to be back on the road so bad. Um, but yeah, so that's all. That is all of that. And then some. I know that to say I live in a van is kind of a very broad, sweeping statement because most people assume that it means I'm like staying at campgrounds or doing like the nature thing. And it is strictly urban and city camping. Um, I am normally parked right outside your apartment complex
That's
and
pretty
doing so
hardcore.
oftentimes illegally.
That's pretty hardcore. Because I remember like uh,
Yeah.
and then I think when we had the '94 Northridge quake, my
Yeah.
parents were, it was pretty hard, and that earthquake was a lot stronger than people say it is. But I remember my parents were like, "Yeah, well, just for safety's sake and for our nerves, we're gonna camp outside the house." And my dad had like he had a van, so
Yeah.
we laid out some sleeping bags in the back, and we're sleeping in the back, and um my goodness, it is so weird to be sleeping outside your house,
Oh
in
my
a
gosh.
car.
But as a kid, I bet it felt like this cool little adventure.
It
Um,
kind of did until the car started shaking when we were having aftershocks.
Wait, okay. I don't. It was definitely not that earthquake. I was born in '91, so I'm trying to think when I was maybe 7 or 8. We used to sleep in sleeping bags on our trampoline in our backyard in San Diego, and there was an earthquake. I was such a whiny kid too. My sister loves to tell this story that I thought she was bouncing in the middle of the night. And so I'm like flopping up and down in this sleeping bag. And I was like, Kelsey, stop it. Stop bouncing. And I look over and she's also just a little worm. Like, I'm like, oh my gosh, it's an earthquake. I thought, what a weird place. What a weird place. Although there was an earthquake in 2024 when I was in LA and I was at the Manhattan Beach Library. And it had this beautiful, like, floor to ceiling glass with a view of the beach. And I was like, I don't want to be here for this, actually. This is a lot of
Seeing that
glass. I'm
glass
going to get
shatter.
out of here.
Yeah. So, how did you prepare for the trip? Because a lot of people don't realize that we're so used to being at home and having everything that we need within an arm's length, or down the hall, or like in storage, right?
Yeah.
But once you're on the road, you're on the road. Like I said, I lived in Kansas, and I traveled out there. I went via Arizona to New Mexico. I stayed with a friend in New Mexico. Then I traveled all the way to Oklahoma City, spent the night there, and
Mhm.
then I went up to Kansas where I was living. On the way back, I just made it two-parter from Wichita to New Mexico and New Mexico to LA.
Oof,
But
that's rough.
I loved it. It was
Yeah.
so beautiful driving in the desert in the middle of the night. You could
You
see
know
the
what? That's
entire
true.
universe.
Yeah. It reminds you of just the expanse of the globe. It is actually, that's a good point. It's a perfect place to be existential, and there are beautiful views. I think I said this that I have traveled a lot around the country, and I have generally nice things to say about everywhere. I'm a big advocate for like getting to know the middle and small cities. Stop giving like New York and LA. Stop assuming that that's where like everything is. Let the people that live there enjoy it, maybe go visit it, but like get to know some of these other places. Um, but Nebraska is a place I'm not really interested in driving in ever in my life. That is the only state, maybe the Dakotas, because I haven't been up there, obviously on this journey, but I haven't been up there in a while. But I would say maybe
Well,
that's the only state. I'm like, I don't desire to get to know you. I'm sorry.
yeah. There's also, for me, also Oklahoma, big expanses, a lot of red clay, and
Yeah,
a
yeah,
long distance between places.
right. Yeah, and that's so. In terms of planning, that has been a really fun challenge because I imported it into Tacoma because I was super impatient to pick the van up. And it is truly a testament to just how um, adamant I was about changing my environment and it was at the cost of being measured and financially intelligent in how I was going to make all of this happen. So the build out was truly a blessing. Like, that could not have worked out more perfectly. And the MLS season had already started. I felt like, okay, I'm just going to I'm going to look up every division, put every team on a Google Maps as pins, and just try to see how cohesively I can connect what I ended up doing: Vancouver, Seattle, Portland, Sacramento, Bay Area, then into Sacramento and on down. And there were times where things lined up pretty decently. Like, there was a weekend the Timbers were hosting the Sounders, and then the next day the Thorns were hosting the Reign. And I knew in my mind, I'm like, okay, yeah, definitely there were schedules coordinated here, especially on account of the fact that they both share Providence Park. But what a blessing it is for me as a rando, because that's just a little treat for the people who live there. But for me to like get it both weekends with the van, so it's something I would have flown out for, to be honest, if I was feeling adventurous in DC. But those are the things that have now sustained me and are what I do best in terms of where I'm going, what I'm doing. Now, prep for everything else has been like buying a small toilet I think I could use, and then realizing it's still too big for the space, rearranging things, buying accessories I thought I needed and then realizing they don't fit. Really paring down my entire wardrobe and deciding how I can still express myself and show up well on camera without having my van be full of freaking clothes. And then a year in, I got an e-bike, and I began strategically deciding where I would park in a big city and how I could just make that my hub and then take my bike everywhere. That's been a lot of the planning, just to maximize the amount of time I'm spending. I have tried to really spend a long time in each city or in each general region, but then sometimes the games call. They just call me. Like, I went out of my way to Nova Scotia, took the ferry, took the van to Nova Scotia, drove to Halifax to see their Canadian Super League, the brand new women's NWSL equivalent, their women's pro league. And that was like a week out of my time that I could have done literally anything with. But I was like, I have to go. I'm here. I'm kind of here. What's an extra 3-hour ferry and 5 hours of driving, you know?
Yeah, and it's such a beautiful part of the continent as well, right? It's
It's
just
insane.
gorgeous.
That's leaving Portland last year, because I was selected for that Copa 90 Best Job in the World competition. And that's been a journey. I just finished publishing my 3rd episode of 3. And I ended up kind of just circling over and over in New England between Portland, Maine, Burlington, Vermont, and Providence, Rhode Island. And I was just, where did you grow up? Did you grow up in California?
Yeah, I grew up in South Central LA, in LA.
Okay. Well, then,
Yeah.
it's like there is so much rich history here, but it is not like the founding of America history.
Yeah.
And even when I was in California recently, it still has an element to me of like the Wild West. That is rapidly changing, but I've like New England and the entire East Coast is just squeezed into each other. They know what they want. It was built at a time where people weren't expanding and making like massive houses or buying land just to have land. And going there and realizing like how easy it was to get to everything. To your point before we press record, talking about a light rail or a way to travel. I mean, oh my gosh, I'm bouncing all over the place. This is kind of what the journey's like. But I remember when I was like, okay, I need to get from Portland to San Francisco. Let me just see like what my day is going to look like. What my day is going to look like is what my mind was thinking. I'm like, a 12-hour drive, 14. What? Are you insane? Like you could drive from New York to Miami in that time. And
Yeah.
that was like, um, it just has a completely different vibe and a completely different immigrant community, which that's been such a fun thing, especially through the lens of soccer, to see um, the different. Providence was the best example to see all of these different immigrant communities come together. One of the derivative pieces of my episode about Providence was meeting a friend of mine who works for the New England Revolution at this restaurant near Rhode Island FC's stadium, and him saying, I mean, I knew the game was going to happen. I was probably going to watch it on my iPad at Planet Fitness, but he said Cape Verde is on the verge of qualifying for their first ever World Cup, and there's a Cape Verdean who owns this restaurant near the stadium. Do you want to go? It was a Monday that we had off, I think. Yeah. He said, do you want to go and grab some lunch or grab a drink? I was like, yeah, sure. Insane. It was like 100 Cape Verdeans experiencing something that I like happened upon. And that is the beauty of lingering, is what I've realized, is really just hanging out in these places as opposed to having a strict, like, I'm going to go see the things people tell me to see and see the game and then go on to my next thing. I did that a little bit more than I wanted to at times, but last April, I was in Charlotte, North Carolina for 5 weeks. I had like a designated block and like a designated coffee shop for myself. I'm like, I'm a regular. I could live here. And
I
I'm
have
doing that
friends
with
out there
every
too.
city I go to. I'm like, wait, I could live here. Wait, I could live here.
It's a nice city. I have friends and family out there, and
Yeah,
I have a friend who lets me stay at his house whenever I visit Charlotte. And I really like the city of Charlotte. It's
it's
really very
beautiful.
cool. It's beautiful, especially
Hmm.
the area around the stadium.
Hmm.
We were walking to the stadium, my buddy. We went to see a USA versus Trinidad game, and
Oh, okay.
in the Gold Cup, and he parked somewhere. He's like, I don't want to pay for parking. So I'm like, all right, fine. So we parked at some public spot, and he's
Hmm.
like, are you up for a 2 mile walk? I'm like, that's nothing. Let's go. So we're walking, and he's just telling me like, yeah. And like to your point about the history of that area, right? He's like, yeah, this cemetery here, there's like some people that were buried here like 300 years ago. I'm
Oh
like, oh
yeah,
my
like truly, all the colonizers. The OGs, I should say. I
yeah.
know several of them expanded west, including my ancestors. I feel like I was thinking this the other day as I was driving. I was like, where are all the cemeteries? Because cemeteries, I mean, they can't possibly be building more. I think we're running out of space, but there's a very like core element of a lot of these East Coast cities. They're like, this founding father is buried here. This poet from 1680, blah blah blah, and you're like,
Yeah.
yeah. So I'm glad that they were around in an era where we were like burying bodies. But like, can you imagine if cemetery culture was big at a time where like nothing exciting happened?
Oh my God. So
Uh,
you've been telling us about your experiences on the
yes,
road,
yes, yes.
visiting MLS stadiums and lower division clubs, and you mentioned like the experience of the different supporters. How would you compare MLS supporter culture to that of other leagues across North America?
Great question. And I'll start by saying that my greatest experience gained on the road has been in lower division soccer, mostly on the men's side. The women's lower division is starting and growing at the moment. And I had, up until that point, really only paid attention to Major League Soccer and had been, before I started the journey, to I think 25 of the 30 stadiums. No, 22, because I'm now at 28. Because I um, crossed off 6 on my journey so far. So I feel like the ones that I have highlighted actually in this Copa 90 project, there are some really, really amazing niche uh, lower division supporters groups that exist because the team and the ownership group has paid special attention to making sure that everything that they build is a reflection of the community. And I'll say this before I compare MLS to lower division, that it is very obvious when teams do and do not do that well. Do it well or do it poorly, I should say, because you can see it reflected in a supporters section or in the diehards. And what I like about MLS is, with some exceptions, the supporters groups are very well organized. A lot of them have like the support of the team to exist in a formal capacity, to be able to advocate to ownership, to be able to use resources for TIFO, to have the ear in a lot of ways for a lot of things, and feel like they can exist without too much tension and still be authentic to themselves. There is a broader conversation there to be had about the authenticity of that and what we perceive as being true and authentic soccer culture in everywhere else in the world that is not actually Eurocentric. But I feel like USL has a lot of room to grow, and I have seen some really successful supporters groups, but I also feel like the coming together in a very specific and niche community, and the pride not just being in the team or in all the trappings of a big time club that would be in MLS. It really is that they are happy to be in a space where everyone from that area who also likes soccer can get together and have a team of their own. To my point, the Portland Hearts of Pine, Vermont Green, who was just playing over the summer, and then Rhode Island FC. Portland has been written about, everyone's been interviewed, content has been made. I mean, I did my episode on them. Of course, I felt like I was being a little bit redundant. And yet some of the experiences I had, my days of practice, literally rehearsal and a performance at a downtown theater viewing party for their playoff game. I was playing in their band. I played in their band. I showed up to several of their games in the summer and then into the fall as I came back for content. Where the governor showed up to the bar that everyone goes to party at, or pregame at, rather. It's just, man, it's so cool and unique, and it's earnest. It's
Yes.
really earnest. It's not gimmicky.
No, I was listening to you, and I
Good, 'cause I was
support.
talking for a long time.
No. What I'm trying to say is, like, I'm listening to you, and I'm thinking about all the experiences I've had, because
Yeah.
I've traveled a lot too. My wife's from North Carolina, like I said, and
Mhm.
from the very first time I went to visit her, I knew about. I mean, I knew that they didn't really have a soccer team, but the second time I went, they had the Carolina Railhawks, and I told her I really, really got to go. I want to go
Mhm.
see the Railhawks, and it was like their inaugural season, and I have this coin, I have it somewhere, that says inaugural season. It has a cool little Railhawk logo.
Yeah.
Um, and then the next time I went back, I bought myself a jersey, and I got to meet the supporters, and I became an official member of their supporters group. And they were all happy to have, like, the West Coast chapter of the
Oh, yeah.
Railhawks, right? Supporters. And so, um, one thing I loved about the supporter culture there at that level was, and I told them, I was like, this reminds me of a lot of what LA Galaxy was like in the early years. There was a
Mhm.
closeness with the players and the franchise, because you knew the people who were running the team, and they would invite you to hang out with them at
Yeah.
restaurants or
Yeah.
bars. And LA Galaxy used to have that in the pre-Beckham years. And I told them, this is beautiful. I love it. Hold on to it as long as you can. And
Mhm.
then they got a new owner who's a really nice man named George Malik, and they tried really hard to push for an MLS franchise, but in doing so, they rebranded
Yeah.
into
Which
North
they
Carolina FC, and I was one of the people that invested into that. I have a they sent me a jersey that has like a number of like your investor number, 52 or whatever. I have
Yeah.
it somewhere, but I when I saw the logo and everything, and I was like, I know they're trying really hard. It feels like they lost something there. And of
Hmm.
course, out of nowhere, Charlotte came roaring, and they took that bit away from them. And but since then, even though they did win a championship, it hasn't felt the same. It's like I miss the old orange kit. I miss the
Hmm.
cool logo, and
Hmm.
and the team is still going, but they actually had some financial issues. They've had to contract, and so I missed what it used to be. Now, real quick, and I mentioned this on other shows before. There's another team, a USL team, or actually, it's not even USL. It's MPSL, I think, or they're out in Boone, North Carolina, and they're
Oh, yes,
called
yes, yes.
Appalachian FC.
Yeah.
And
Man,
the
I missed them on the road. They're the one I missed.
they're so awesome. Let me
I
tell you, the first season that they started, I heard about them. I heard that we're starting a team, and I was like, you know what? I gotta be in on the ground level. I bought a
know.
season ticket package.
Are you joking?
Oh, for real. I bought a season ticket package and it
Oh
came
my
with a
God.
free kit, right? So I got the
Yeah.
kit. And then I was like, I'm not out there. So what am I gonna do? So I contacted the team and then I told them, can you raffle off my season ticket
Oh,
package?
that's
And they
so
had a raffle and they give it to
smart.
some guy. So
Yeah.
every week I'd send him my ticket and he was the tickets and the parking.
Oh my
So I was
God.
like, that's cool.
That's yeah, that's actually really sweet. I will say, I'm gonna get up and show you. Not nearly to that extent, because I that is kind of random, even if your wife is from North Carolina. But because I have loved AV Alta from afar, and I only saw them on the road. Actually, I saw them on the road twice this year. I'm going to show you the jacket that I'm embarrassed to say I spent $200 on it. I want to show it to you though.
That's gas money.
I know. And my van takes freaking diesel.
Oh no.
I know, right? I know. Okay, so this is like a Letterman's jacket. I've been wearing it. I haven't even taken off the tag. That's like I'm
That's really
so
cool.
yeah. Okay, so it's got AV Alta FC on the front with the poppies,
Yeah, the
as
California
you know,
poppy.
Antelope Valley. Of course, AV Alta on the back. They've got their 661 area code, and then their I don't. Can you see this? Their inaugural
Yeah.
patch with the
Yeah, I can see it.
Joshua
Yeah.
tree. And then on the inside, they have an embroidered Joshua tree.
That's a really nice jacket.
It's so freaking nice. And it feels so good. And green is my color. Like, I'm obsessed. It's one of those things, I will say. So when I'm comparing the two, and it's tough because MLS now has a lot of diversity in the ways that their fans show up. Um, I Man, LA Galaxy is a great example that your baseline of people who will stay diehard through the really poor lead up to being an MLS Cup contender and then winning, and then the absolute fall off after. Your base of fans that will show up regardless is higher than most other teams in the league. And it's been really hard to watch the a little bit of the fall off with Atlanta United. Um,
Oh,
I
yes.
feel like in the games I went to for Charlotte, Continental Tire is a sponsor of mine. Love it. But they flew me into Charlotte for a game in the fall, and it was the atmosphere was so different from the 2 or 3 games I had gone to earlier in the season. And I asked, and they're like, "Oh, it's a school night." I'm like, "It's a 4 o'clock game on a Sunday." That doesn't make sense. It was like half full. Um, and that's I mean, DC United is an atmosphere that I've criticized a lot, but the the point that I am trying to make is LA Galaxy, LAFC, Austin. I put NYCFC in this category, and they'll especially be that way once they get their own stadium. Maybe the two Ohio teams. I'm going to be missing something, but there are teams whose fans will are showing up and are still riding a momentum. Um,
The Cascadia teams too.
oh my gosh, yes, yes, yes. How could I forget? So but the drop off there in these other teams that I feel are lagging is not nearly as steep as it is in USL. It is very clear to me that there are a lot of USL teams who exist as a larger development plan in a city's area, and it is done either by the wrong millionaire investor, or this was a point that I had tried to make in my Providence episode of this Copa 90 project, but we tweaked a little bit of the language in order to collaborate with the league in posting, but still remain authentic to myself. Their owner, several times when interviewed, had mentioned that he is already a part investor in a team in Europe, as is all these guys. They're like, you're Eurocentric for what? Like, why? I mean, my roots are European, but I don't have a connection to them. Like, I'm going to trust that my ancestors left for a reason. But at the same time, like, he said he's watching LA Galaxy's, a game of LA Galaxy's. And I guess Don Garber was out saying something about their eyes being on the next cities who will be expansion teams. And the way he tells it is so much better than I'm telling it now, because I'm kind of doing it with an eye roll. He turns to his wife and says, like, honey, we got to invest in a team. Like, we got to invest in a team in Phoenix right now so we can buy our way into MLS. And that he basically shares it as a point to legitimize his interest in U.S. soccer and as someone who is capable of growth. But where it misses the mark, and where it was a sticking point with the team and the league when it came to collaborating and what they thought of my script, was I was saying two things that are important and interesting to me as someone who did work in politics and likes to be civilly engaged and loves infrastructure. I love urban planning.
Yeah.
He made two. He has clearly stated he has had big ambitions before, because he is an investor, part owner, or maybe full owner in Phoenix Rising, because he thought he was going to buy his way into MLS. So Phoenix Rising and Rhode Island FC was created out of nowhere. And they have a brand new stadium as well. And it was built with this promise that they would revitalize the surrounding area of Pawtucket, which is the city it's actually in, just neighboring Providence, but not far. And my point of the journey in these episodes is basically to say, based on this atmosphere, based on the community, and based on my personal interests, is this a place where after the journey's over, I would want to settle? Because we were trying to do like a formulaic thing. And so at the end, it's like, does the road lead back to Providence? And what I would say in like an hour-long conversation about it is explain all the nuances and then all the reasons why I love Providence and would absolutely go and enjoy it there. But in terms of the longevity of the team and how they'll exist in that community, it's up in the air. And so what I wanted to express was like, this guy is clearly, he's not a local. He clearly has ambitions. And I am alluding to the fact that he's not, that the city council is a little bit annoyed that he's not kept on the right timeline for these promises he made. To say that directly and then to reach out to Rhode Island FC and go like, hey, will you guys collab with me on this post? Yeah, they're probably not going to do that. I remember having a separate conversation with the folks that I've been working with in this competition at Copa, and I just kept saying, I really want to be authentic to myself. There is a really big gap in the space between people who cover soccer as journalists and people who cover it as content creators, the popular ones. I feel like people who are making meaningful soccer content are not, some of this big soccer creator, like I Show Speed, he's the most insane example, but there's a lot of guys like him. And they're not contributing to the conversation in a meaningful way as much as they are like entertaining. And I feel like you and me and the work that we do in the fan media space in our group of folks on that Twitter chat are filling that void. And I want to elevate it to a level of legitimacy for myself and dive into things that are worth talking about. Does this owner actually care about the community or not? um, especially at a time where like formal and traditional sports journalism is dying. Like we are
We
today.
just saw what happened in the Washington Post today.
And
That's
that was my local
horrible.
freaking paper. I interviewed Stephen Goff, who basically jumped off the Titanic before it sunk, which is how I described working on Rand Paul's presidential campaign in 2016, by the way.
Mm.
I like, I really felt for him. We had talked, and it was essentially like the package you're offered to leave is not just, it's not enticing financially so much as it is proof of writing on the wall. And he had been there for so long, it was just time to go. But now I'm like, there was a legacy, there was a decades long legacy there for multiple sports. And we are on the precipice of having Washington Spirit as the beacon for every other pro women's team on how you effectively run a successful and profitable team. And the Commanders are about to be brought back in to DC for the first time in, what is that?
Like 20 years.
Yeah, I can't do math at this hour. Um, and then like on top of that, WNBA keeps getting bigger. They have a successful WNBA team. NBA, but the Caps have won a Stanley Cup in the past 10 years. The Nats have won a World Series in the past 10 years. There's like, I don't know. It's so frustrating, but those are the things that I really think about on the road is what I should say. And I do want to, especially as I continue going forward and making content, but now I'm still retroactively going back and looking at stuff I've made, and now I have clarity of purpose in how I package it based on this Copa 90 competition, which has been the biggest takeaway for me. But I just I'm interested in those things because we don't exist in a space where these teams can rely on the legitimacy of history. Like people's dedication to insert any English team here is because it came from the early 20th century. And they're like dad's dad who had set roots down and had considered this like his, either played like along with the other members of the factory he worked at, or the folks that he knew from his community. And it like that's, to me, that's the most legitimate way that this exists, and it exists that way in a lot of different cultures and countries. And in America, it's just been capitalism from the start, and a lot of it, especially in MLS right now, has had to be like manufactured history, manufactured heart, manufactured emotion. Is what I'm saying making sense? I hope so.
Yeah,
Um,
because I think you're referring to how a lot of people invest a lot of money to set up a team, and then they have all the meetings to try to generate interest and to creating a supporter culture, right? But
mhm,
um, this is where I always tell people how important it is for me that we always have the U.S. Open Cup, because it ties to the
right.
history of all these other teams that may not be in major cities but have always contributed to the history of the sport.
Mhm.
Uh, I tell people, the very first champion was a Brooklyn Field Club, and right now there's a new team that's popping up in Brooklyn. Oh, I think they're already running, but and then I talk about one of the most successful teams of all time. You mentioned factories. There was Bethlehem Steel.
Yeah,
My
yeah,
wife,
yeah.
my wife got her master's in at Lehigh University, and so we got to travel out there, and I was so excited. I got to visit Bethlehem, Pennsylvania, and I was like, there's still remnants of Bethlehem Steel there. And this was
Mhm.
at a time when they were a minor league team for Philly, and they still had the Bethlehem Steel name and everything. And I got myself a really cool kit and a sticker,
Yeah.
and they still have. A lot of people don't say it. People talk about Crew Stadium being the first ever soccer specific stadium, right? They have a stadium
Technically, it
there.
wasn't, I think, yeah.
Yeah.
Which I've been corrected on some of that, those details in what I've posted lately too. And I'm like,
Yeah.
ugh,
So from
um,
what my understanding
yeah,
was Bethlehem Steel had the first ever soccer specific stadium, and right now a high school uses it, but it's still there. This stadium has been
still
around
there.
for
I
so
love that.
long.
I'm now
So
like, okay, will I get back to Pennsylvania? I did drive through Rochester, and the like lack of, I don't even think there needs to be any sort of homage to the rhinos, but in my mind, I'm like, it just was
the
such a cool
Rhino.
niche thing that just does not exist there anymore. And they have a team, Flower City Union, I think it's called, um, who I had watched, yeah, the men's and women's team play. And it's just, I'm there with that stretch in upstate New York. There were so many games where it was like me and a couple sets of parents and then a girlfriend or two. I'm like, all right. Actually, I remember this. I posted a video that's like, I am here with four other people. I'm posting this in like the 5th minute. Comment something and I will yell it. I will literally yell
Oh my
anything.
god.
And I spent the second half like so, and then I just yell and like, who said that? Who said that? It's insane.
That's
Um,
pretty wild, by the way. I
yeah.
post
Oh
it and I
yeah.
will
And
yell
that's
it.
the Open Cup is actually, this is crazy. So and I feel we're over an hour. I knew, remember when I said I'll play it for 45 minutes, it'll be an hour. And
Yeah,
I'm
we're just
laughing
having
so
fun
much at the
chatting.
end of it. And that's actually what it feels like being 2 hours ahead of y'all. Um, I Portland Hearts of Pine are traveling to Vermont Green to play an Open Cup match on effing St. Patrick's Day. That is like write it down in your diary type storyline for me. I want to go. It would be, in terms of the journey, it would be inauthentic because I'd have to fly there. But I'm so proud of the schedule that I've put together and will be posting shortly on my Instagram. Is my month of March in Texas has me at San Antonio FC hosting Phoenix Rising for the USL Championship season opener. The following weekend, I squeeze in FC Dallas versus San Diego. Then I have the Open Cup. We'll see if I go to Vermont or not. But I'm going to finish that Open Cup round one with Laredo Heat hosting El Paso Locomotive. Laredo Heat is like a guys after work team, or maybe even young kids team. Just one of those like could be a really cool US. Why do I keep saying it formally? US Open Cup, an Open Cup storyline.
Yeah, like
Then I am
Farolito.
taking my you what?
Like that team from the Bay Area, Farolito.
Oh yes, yes, yes. What are they called?
Oh
I
my
can't
god.
remember.
Yeah, they have a name, but like they won it before, a long time ago. But
Well,
they're one of
that
those like
and
there was a team from Virginia that was literally a pub team, and they made it I think
yeah,
to like the quarters, right?
mhm.
And then they ran into
And
DC United, I think.
there was I think it was like a Baltimore, I don't actually. You know what? I'm not even going to try to guess at this point, and I'm embarrassed. Like DC United feels so far behind me, and the other insecurity I have as a content creator, but just also as a person who enjoys MLS so much that I am in a fantasy league. It's so hard to keep up with MLS on the road. It is so hard because I'm living in this scarcity mindset where I only have my power station and my Wi-Fi hotspot to watch games. And I have long said that it is truly a humiliation ritual to go to any bar in America and to say, "Hi, do you have the DirecTV package that has MLS Season Pass? I would like to watch the Whitecaps play the Dynamo." And they're like, "Whitecap, what? Is that a hockey team?" I'm like, no, the Vancouver Whitecaps. It's MLS Vancouver White. It's so embarrassing. It's so embarrassing. So I love that I see these things in person. I love that I'm getting every MLS team in Texas crossed off the list here. But I have been to FC Dallas before and Q2 in Austin. I have not been to Houston. So that'll be after that. I'll have two. But the beauty of this road trip and what feels like a like the best part of the planning experience is that after that Laredo Heat game, that will take me to the border. I will then cross and drive down into Monterrey, where I will watch Monterrey versus Guadalajara Chivas
Ooh, big game.
Femenil, the women's team,
Oh, that's
on a Friday night. A Saturday night, the men's team, Monterrey, will be hosting Chivas.
Mm-hmm.
The following Wednesday, I am going to see a Tigres versus Club America Femenil game.
Another good
Then
game.
World Soccer Shop reached out and said, hey, what are you doing XYZ day? I'm like, oh, I'll be in Monterrey. They're like, wait, we had you in mind for something else, but if you're going to be down in Monterrey, we would love to work with you on Bolivia versus Suriname's World Cup qualifier on Thursday. And then the following Tuesday is Iraq versus a to-be-determined team, also a World Cup qualifier at that same stadium. What is it, BBVA or whatever?
Yeah.
The best part of all of this, though, for me personally, well, I will return and I'll get to Houston where I'll have a weekend of Dash hosting and then Dynamo hosting. Again, just beautiful, chef's kiss. But how I know God is truly looking out for me is that the Friday after the first World Cup qualifier, after I've already done a weekend of like Liga MX, like straight into the eyes and ears, there is a random but quite popular and clearly catered for me because at one point the Killers will be a headliner on Sunday. There's a music festival where that Friday night, so I can go and see the one person I want and not have to deal with the rest of the show or the festival, Tyler, the Creator, is headlining.
Nice.
And one of my favorite parts about my journey last year was that my road trip lined up perfectly to see Tyler, the Creator's Chromacopia tour in Atlanta, in Charlotte, and in, I wish I could have gone in Brooklyn, but that day I really missed out and tickets were insane. And then in Newark. So I've seen him 3 times. And I feel like to continue that into 2026 and also to do it in another freaking country and not have it be like well, I have to choose between this and a soccer game. Could not have scripted it better. Truly.
Steeler, a good friend there, is saying Glass House Soccer. That's our buddy right there who covers Chicago.
I know. And listen, it is hard. I will say this, and then I'll leave it here. Basically, the most difficult, I know we had talked briefly before we started, the most difficult aspects of travel and things that have gone great. I have really learned to be comfortable with myself, to know who I am, I've always been pretty resourceful, but now I am just literally put me in any scenario, I can make it work, make it happen. It has helped me deconstruct the negative relationship I have with my body as a woman. I don't even think about wearing makeup anymore, whereas previously that was something I felt like I had to have. Those, I say little things, those are like random one-off things. The other side of it is so lonely, and I am a middle child who just craves to be understood and craves to be heard. And I've gotten to the point where I am that person that probably everyone thinks is in their business. I'm like, I'll stranger, I'll talk to anybody. It's turned into some really beautiful situations. It's also like helped me kind of get to know cities when I go, because people do love to offer recommendations for things. But yeah, it's tough. I mean, when there's no shower in there, there's no formal bathroom in there.
Wet naps, baby.
Yeah. Well, Planet Fitness is also the most heinous color purple that could possibly be decided, and that's to like go in to a Planet Fitness to like get ready for the day. It's rough. I don't think that it would be as difficult for a gentleman, but I insist on, for some reason, having very long hair and just like taking longer to get ready. But
check that out. We have a super chat right here.
Oh my gosh. Wait a Galligan in California.
One. We're not,
That's so funny.
are we there yet? A good one. Thank you so much. He says,
That is
1 gallon
amazing.
of gas.
Yeah, that's
God.
honestly that's like the perfect note to end on. If you guys have any questions, if you are sitting here going, yeah, maybe I want to import a Japanese van, yeah, maybe I want to go to XYZ stadium but I've never been and I'm a little worried. I mean, someone DM'd me the other day and said, "Hey, I'm taking my daughter to a Washington Spirit game and we really want to get autographs. Where would be the best place to do it?" I talked this guy into showing up before instead of coming after because I have lingered on both sides of the game to watch girls ask for autographs. And it was so sweet that he even thought to ask me. And it worked out really well. Those are the conversations I want to have. I would love to help anyone with anything and just publish more content. So,
No, when I was first learning how to get into the in soccer journalism, I was very fortunate. My mentor was Graham L. Jones, who was a soccer writer for the LA Times. He was also the editor of Soccer Digest.
I'm
And
writing
I
his
asked him, pardon?
I'm writing
Oh,
his name down.
yeah,
Sorry, keep talking.
yeah, Graham L. Jones, and I asked him for advice because he gravitated towards me in the press box at the Rose Bowl because
Hmm.
he saw I was wearing my University Times of Cal City polo, and he's like, "Oh, I used to be the sports editor at University Times." So he sort of
Yeah.
gave me advice, and I asked him to be my mentor. So he was like, "Don't," he goes, "don't burden yourself with having to write, like the game article." He goes, "Because you have all these other
Yes.
people doing it." He goes,
Hmm.
"You have this wonderful opportunity to, like, look at the game from a different point of view." So he's like, go and have your conversations with the players, pick their minds for whatever, but also be very observant for all the other little things that happen around the
Hmm.
stadium and around the game.
Hmm.
So I remember we did all that round, and then like we were leaving the tunnel, and this is late hours after the game. Kobe Jones comes out of the tunnel, and there's some kids that are still kicking the ball around there, and he just starts playing with the kids, and he gets photos with them, and
Yeah.
autograph. And I was like, "This is beautiful." He's like, "There's your story right there," and I was like, "Oh wow!" So it really inspired me to start looking at different aspects of the footballing culture that it's something
Hmm.
that because it's like we said, the game is there. Somebody's gonna write about it. They're gonna say this happened and this happened and happened, so and so scored. But what happens, around that, and it gives it an extra dimension. And this is where, like you said earlier, the content creators, you know, a lot of us aren't beholden to, having to do things a certain way for the sake of the
Right.
team, right?
Right.
So we're able to offer different stories and offer a different flavor because that's one thing I love about the sport of soccer. Not that other sports don't have it, but soccer is just there's something different about it, right? Like
Hmm.
you said, you traveled, you got to hang out all these different supporters and experience that culture that is that ties all of us together, but it's a different flavor everywhere you go, and you could
Yep.
feel it. It's palpable. Like you said, you were drumming in there, and you feel it when you're there in the supporters section, or whether you just want to sit there in the seat and just take the game in, right?
Yeah, which I do. I do both plenty. There have been some games where I'm very overstimulated, and I'm also in a place I've never been in before. That was my experience in Montreal. It was fun to watch from afar, but yeah, I think if I could leave anyone with a parting thought, it's that it is so cool. It really is cool and such a blessing to see all of these different places. But I oftentimes leave an experience after meeting supporters and getting to know them. I leave with a sense of longing for a permanent community. And in a time where everything feels like it has to be bigger, someone has to go viral. If you have a problem in your on your city block, you have to talk about what's happening at the White House. Everything feels like it has to be big. The conversations for MLS, it has to be LA, it has to be Miami. It is in everyone's benefit to hold tight to their immediate environment and immediate community. And to me, that is truly the most meaningful thing because it does so much more than provide a fun Saturday night. There are people whose entire lives have been transformed in the most profound way because they show up earnestly and consistently to that space. And I feel like I haven't been a part of it yet, but I have been respectfully and oftentimes with the camera off, because it just is not something, it's something that I always want to honor. I do not want to exploit, but it's so beautiful to watch. It truly is. Like, there's some really cool soccer fans out there. And it's been great to meet them, but I feel like the best ones are in your backyard, and you should be blessed to have a backyard.
Speaking of somebody in our backyard, by the way, if you see in the comments, we have our good friend Rocio, the one and only Rocio, commenting. She is such a dedicated fan. She lives in Apple Valley and travels to every Galaxy home game.
Oh my gosh.
Yes.
That's dedication. That's also like, that's a hobby you like. And it's not just, it's the process. If I wanted to just go see all these games, there's a much easier way to do it. But I think it's the process of like forcing myself to slow down, or even for her, like taking the time. It's like the ritual of getting there and back.
Yeah.
Man, people really need to, I don't say slow down as in like take a break from all the things that are truly being forced on you right now, but take a breath and assess the things in your life that are good, and try, if you do care about soccer, to connect with it in a way that gives you a break from the goings on right now. I am truthfully not super looking forward to the World Cup this year, but
oh my goodness, yes.
yeah.
That's
Wait,
another topic that
I
we were
don't
discussing.
want to open that can of worms. What a great
Yeah.
cliffhanger to end on. Maybe I should come back.
Well, we do have another super chat right here, and we're gonna
Yes.
mention this real quick because it was like a hot topic today.
So, my portion.
Our 99 super chat. My portion to get CR7, who we have heard has boycotted his second consecutive game with his
Oh,
team because he's upset that he feels that the league is favoring the opposing team, the rival team, and everybody's is already with their fan fiction talking about how Ronaldo's going to end up in MLS, and everybody forgets that Sporting Kansas City has the discovery rights, so he might
I
end up
know it.
right
Yeah.
down the road from Wichita for all we know.
I think in my mind, I'm like, oh, well, it would be the same motivation that so many players have when they come here, that they can exist in anonymity. But that guy has gotten so much work done to his face that everyone would be like, maybe I don't know who exactly you are, but I know you're someone important.
Yeah.
I don't think he would like it there.
Well,
I love Casey. Maybe I think it's too good for him. We'll say that.
well, before we head out tonight,
Yes.
I'm gonna ask you this parting question, because, like you said, it's been quite a journey for you,
Mhm.
and you're still on this journey. Um, we heard the old saying, that the journey is the destination. For a lot of people, that means
Yeah.
something different. But from what you've been through so far, what have you gained from this, and in which respects have you grown?
Ooh, I have, like, first and foremost, number one, I have reclaimed my humanity. That has been the biggest. I did not realize how hopeless and helpless I felt for a long time, trying to climb a corporate ladder, so to speak. I did not enjoy the view from the mountain that I had climbed, and I thought that engaging in politics meant that I was truly engaging with the voter or the people at the grassroots level, but it's this journey that has put me face to face with so much more, and an appreciation for my fellow human and for the entire country, and the way that it is different, and like how blessed I am to be able to experience it in this way. That's probably the biggest thing. And I feel like you asked a second question, but I do not remember.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, I know. I was just asking about in which respects you've grown, but you kind of
Oh,
addressed it
girl.
already.
Yeah, I guess that's, look at me answering two questions in one. No, it truly is that. And I feel like, I don't know. I I anticipate, interestingly enough, I anticipate being in the van for maybe another 2 years. If that's is that crazy to say? Because I'm entering my third year. I started this in April of 2024, and I told you this before that we kicked it off. I yearn for it. I want to be like I want to be cozied up in my van right now, and it's because of all of these ways in which I have evolved in my thinking. I I don't care about physical items as much as I used to. I love to nest, but I recognize how few things I actually need to do it. I really like the flexibility, and I can't do the corporate lifestyle. I cannot do the 9 to 5 desk job anymore. I'm so broken from it, and I think a lot about, in a greater political sense, what it might look like at the end of our lives to see if any of the labor culture in this country has changed, and how we kind of even out from the insane obsession with productivity that like the age of the internet has forced upon us. So those are things I think about on the road. Those
Oh
are the
yeah,
things that I think about to myself and journal a lot about on the road. But yeah, those are the ways in which I've definitely learned and grown grown to appreciate, I should say.
yeah. And there's one thing to be said because you're traveling across the country and you know into Canada, you're going to Mexico, and
Oh yes, yes.
I've traveled too. And one thing that we can agree on is that it is a spirit. It's a spiritual thing, especially when you're on your own.
Hmm.
Your you know your thoughts start to go to places that you never imagined. I always tell people, it's good to be alone every now and then because so many times when we're around people, we're acting a certain way, certain people, or in certain situations. But when you're alone, it's just you and your thoughts, and that's when you discover who you really are. And some people are afraid of that. But I think that when you come to terms with that, you start to become a better person because you look at yourself and you're like, I like this aspect of who I am, or is this something that I need to work on? And that's
Hmm.
something that you could do when you're alone,
Hmm.
and you're just by yourself. And that's why, like you said, traveling, get out of that bubble, right?
Yeah.
Go out there and experience. And the way you're talking about how you missed the van, and to me, it almost sounds like you're like a sailor. You're like, yeah, I don't want to go back to land.
Yeah, yeah, like the open road, it calls me. It does. It really does. Even though I will say, last weekend I had come out to Wichita with a moving truck full of my friend's things from her parents' house in Savannah, and I also drove a puppy out for her. I really took the opportunity to be there for a friend in a way I never could have been otherwise, which meant that I had to go get my van last weekend and drive it back. And what a treacherous drive that was. I was like, okay, I don't want any of this in the van. We will not be stepping out before we're ready. But Mississippi and Arkansas, their state infrastructure was not prepared to de-ice.
Oh my goodness.
So yeah, it was
Yes,
long.
yes, that's a whole other topic.
Oh
I,
yes,
I
yes,
was
yes.
just talk, I was telling
And we
people
should
about
go.
myself earlier, and we should get going before we get in trouble.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Thank you so much for having me, and thank you to everyone who joined and contributed. I appreciate that.
So much for joining us. So as we get going, for me and Bryant and the rest of the News Across the Galaxy crew, we thank you once again for hanging out with us tonight. It's the season opener of news of the midweek show. Hey, Galaxy fans, other MLS fans, if you're going to be at Coachella Valley Invitational at CVI, look for us, and we might just interview you.
Oh,
Cheyenne, thank you so much for joining us again.
thank you.
Um,
Thank you. Truly.
like like Nick said it earlier, you're living the dream. You're traveling
Mhm.
across this beautiful continent, meeting so many interesting people.
Yeah.
Um, I really look forward to seeing where your travels take you this year. And I think Nick said it earlier. He's like, you have a friend in Chicago. I think, with all these people
Yes.
you're meeting, you have friends everywhere, which is really
Yeah.
cool, right?
Truly. Yeah. I love it. Wouldn't have it any other way.
Well, put out your socials, by the way, so people can follow you.
Yes, please. Largely on Instagram as we speak, but we'll be on YouTube plenty more. But every handle is BTWN Clean Sheets. And my name is Cheyenne. I try to put that in the bio, but if you find me and call me by Between Clean Sheets, I'll be okay with it.
Well, everybody, you can find me on News Across the Galaxy, NAG News. You can also find me on Twitter, Blue Sky, Instagram as Edgar Nags, and our YouTube channel. We have a lot of good stuff lined up for you this year. And as we always say before we leave, keep on nagging and Wu-Tang for life. Let's go.